You have the agenda that I sent for today. And so we want to look at Carl's minute report when we met on the 9th of November. Carl?
Um, I did the best I could. It was quite a long discussion about next steps, and so I did the best I could to capture the essence of it. Is there anything that if anyone noticed anything I missed, please let me know. I can add it.
Agreed.
Reviewing,
I think it's
reviewing now.
I think it's fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah, looks good to me, Carl.
That's the kind of conversation we had back and forth. So let's vote.
So I moved to. I'm sorry, Saeed.
Okay.
Take
Can
your
I
time.
can I just review? Give me just 1 second. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to review before. Um, Looks good. Thank you very much.
I move that we approve the minutes from November 5th, 2022.
Second.
Nancy and Nick and Saeed all said second.
Teamwork.
So we count that as five. 5 votes yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, ready to go to the next item.
Thank you all.
thank
Thank
you.
you, Carl.
We were going to look at third quarterly report. And instead of doing that, last time we met, I worked with Nancy and she forwarded some changes which were already put in place. And after the discussion, instead of looking at the third quarterly report, I thought this was the appropriate time to have DE&I look at what we accomplished over the last year. So it took some time for me to put it together. But that's the report, and I understand I sent 2 copies of the same thing. I'm looking at the one that begins with outlining how we started on October 27th and the action that was taken in the first meeting. And then I identified those of us that are serving on the DEI committee. And I included in the document the information that I have on Nancy and her background. And then we have your name for Saeed, Carl, and Nick. And then at the tail end, you have my background. We've followed the same format, and what I would like for you to do is to create your own description of your background, send it to me so that I can include it in the annual report, so that whoever is reading it understands our engagement and what our background is that we're bringing to the work that we're doing. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
It can just be a paragraph and you'll follow the same device or the documents that we have here, which is your education, knowledge, employment, anything that you want to do to tell us what brings you to addressing this issue. And at the tail end of page 2 is where we talked about with Nick leading the conversation. And the first one is that I serve as chair. And the second one is that we would have 1 year to meet. And then the select board would then decide whether DEI has met expectations or whether the committee should be discontinued. Then on page 3, I talked about the first quarterly report, which is what we did for the first 3 months. And we documented gathering all of the written data, providing copies at the early in December, and then reading it over the holidays. And then looking at the data that we collected, and that's noted in the document on page 3, and it talks about data collection and the initial diagnosis. Then the provide feedback for the executive, and that was when we met with Amy and Joanne to provide feedback to them. And then when it was presented to the select board on the 28th of February. I then referenced after that third one that in the appendix, you'll find the 14 pages that are included as part of this report. Then we addressed the second quarterly report, and we began that by talking about the process that I designed and we spoke about, and that is from philosophy with core values, the mission, the goals, decision, action steps, results, and self-appraisal. That's what we're going through. And I made sure that we have the word and the definition so that people understand what we're aiming to do. That's on page 4. And then we talk about looking at the select board and their mission statement and the language from the mission statement and the recommendation that it be moved to first instead of fifth in the list, and the discussion by the select board, and then the vote that occurred on April 11th. And that's when it was approved. Then on page 6, we look at the third quarterly report, which is to speak to the execs and the assignment and the results, and the document is attached. And then, just as I put in the email, we have to look at what's the direction that we have to complete. We've looked at mission with the select board, but not philosophy. We've begun to look at core values, so we're still at the beginning part of the process. And then what's coming up are the goals, decision, actions, results, and self-appraisal. And that's what's listed under why, how, and what for the process. Page 8 looks at where are we now? And that is the opportunity for each of us to share what we think should be done next. Your way may be different, but if there's a comment that you would like to make or a direction for us to look at or a conversation that we should have, on page 8, what you want to do is to identify that, send it to me in an email, and what I'd like to do is include it so that when we submit this annual report, we know the direction that we're going to be taking. Your thoughts may be different than mine, but at least there's an opportunity for you to engage in that. So it's anything that you think about or the direction that we need to go, here's a place where we can put it. And then, of course, the backup after page 8 are all the documents. So your thoughts?
Well, geez, guys, I'll go first.
Just absorbing all of the information here.
Yeah, no, it's a lot, and it's great, and I think that it's actually it's nice to look back at quarter 1 and quarter 2 to see what was accomplished and what we worked towards. I guess my only suggestion at this point would be to further expound on what we have on page 7, right? So when we talk about the philosophy, what's the next step, right? What's the action item? What's the goal? I think that we obviously touch on it like throughout the report, but I think like if we're looking at the end as like a, here's the executive summary, next steps, takeaway. Here's an opportunity for us to, say, here's where you want to be picking things up from, essentially. So like, yeah, like the philosophy, what's the next step? Oh, you can do a whiteboard in this thing?
Well, that's what you have on the page here. One of the experiences that Nancy and I had in meeting with the planning board was to look at how some of the leadership say that they do not engage in discrimination. Therefore, that doesn't apply to them. Nancy and I walked away from that meeting saying that what we need to do is to review what is the employee legal rights as laid out by federal law. We have already completed that project, but it hasn't been presented to people that are sitting on the boards. When we meet with the select board again, we want to look at, yes, what are their core values, not only for them, but for the select board.
Right. So actually taking legal rights definitions as an example, other than you and Nancy, I don't believe that any of us have seen where we've netted out with that. And I mean, like, is that something that we want to include in this report?
Yes, I have it, but it hasn't been presented to anybody except Nancy and me, and we have agreed on that. If we're ready to present it to the select board, yes, we can distribute it, but it needs to be distributed to them first before we release it to the public in this report.
Shouldn't we as a committee also review those?
We
For that
can,
document?
yes, but that should be when we meet with the select board and this committee to look at what is the federal legislation that guides how every person should be treated who lives in this town, who work
Yep.
in this town.
And do you or Nancy know about BJ if that document has been reviewed by town council?
No, it has not.
So okay, so
Nancy and I just delivered it last week.
okay,
It's ready to send out, but we have to present that to the select board. And it's a legal document. I mean, there are 4 books that have been referenced and where the data came from. And we're ready to share it. And if they want to have town council look at it, if they want to have an attorney look at it, it's perfectly all right. But
Mhm.
I don't want to spread out the documentation before it's presented to the select board. And that's the stage where we are. We're still at the beginning of the process with them.
Okay. So like, I guess for the sake of this quarterly report, taking what you just said into account and using the legal rights definitions as an example, here on page 7, wouldn't we say, employee legal rights definitions, : this exercise has been conducted, completed, Nancy and BJ took it to this point, you know, awaiting review by this body and select board, right? And then, I mean, like, I guess what I'm saying is like, this is our final report, right? We're not going to have another opportunity to put anything before the select board before the ad hocness of this committee ceases. So I'm trying to leave it off in a place that people can then go, okay, great. Here's where we're going to pick these items up from.
That's fine. I'll add that comment. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so like a status of each item. That's what
Yeah.
you're looking for.
Yeah, just an action status, and if necessary, the goal of what it is. I mean, I think we're fairly clear on some of the goals, but it wouldn't hurt. I would have loved to have reviewed the legal rights definitions tonight with everybody. As a committee, I'm bummed that we can't do that, but maybe we can plan to do that on the 30th when we meet. and at least this body has a chance to review it one time.
Well, I'd like to suggest another approach, and that is after I receive communication from you this week, I'd like to determine that our next meeting is next Monday. I don't think that the select board is meeting Monday, but if we could follow through on the content for this report, add the comments that you send me or the conversation that we have today, and at the same time, I can also send out the document if this committee wants to review the 6 pages. It's 25 listings of the legal documents. I'm happy to send that to you.
Yeah, it's essentially an overview of all the like legal rights. So basically a list of all the different acts or laws and what they pertain to, a short description.
So it's up to you whether you want to do it with the select board or you want to do it ahead of the select board. My suggestion is to do it with, but it's up to you.
Well, I just don't know how we're going to review something with the select board if 3 of the 5 members of this committee haven't reviewed what you've put together.
But it would be,
This committee hasn't come to a consensus on anything that has been done.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of looking at it also from Nick. Or I guess I agree with you, Nick, because let this committee be on the same page first, and then we can, present it to the select board and have a.
yeah, I understand what you're saying. The educational process is to learn the exercises that we're putting before the select board and this committee. We're not doing the select board after we do this committee.
But that's exactly what we have to do, right? This committee has to
We've
vet.
not done that. We've had one meeting with the select board and it was September 19th. We've not been able to generate another meeting to pick up where that conversation left off.
Right. I don't disagree with that statement. I guess where I'm getting caught up is when talking about the legal rights definitions, which is the thing that I'm kind of getting hung up on at the moment, is that that's a piece of work that 2 members of this committee have taken on to do. You say that you've completed it. This committee as a group has not reviewed it, agreed upon it, discussed it, voted on it, none of that. How are we to then put it in front of the select board as a recommendation if we aren't in agreement as a committee?
All right.
Yeah, I think BJ, they just want to be able to review it. And I think it's okay because unlike, say, the values exercise, it's not like a subjective document. It's like a more like a reference document. So I think it's fair to send it out to everyone and let them look at it. What do you
Yeah,
think?
we can have philosophy conversations and values conversations together. I'm fine with that. That's absolutely, those are absolutely conversations that can happen naturally in a group setting. But like if this committee, I mean, I said this from day one, if we're ever presenting anything to the select board, we have to be in agreement on it. I mean, otherwise, what's the point in the 5 of us even being here?
Okay. We met with the select board on September 19th. On the 20th of October is when we met with the planning board. The planning board leadership denied that they do any discrimination. Based on that conversation, which was 50 minutes long, Nancy and I then talked about the federal guidelines that are presented to protect employee rights. That's when we created the employee rights document. That's after we met with the select board.
But this committee has met multiple times since October 20th, and at no point was that document put on this agenda for this committee's review.
It was not because we just finished it
Yeah,
last
it didn't
Monday.
exist till like a couple days, like full completion.
That makes perfect sense. So thank you
This
for
is
that
the
time.
first meeting we've had since we finished it last week.
Thank you for the timeline, BJ. It kind of makes sense now. So I guess what Nick and I are saying is let's put that document on the agenda for our next meeting and let's discuss it
That's what
before.
I just said. If you want to review this report and of the legal documents, we can do that next Monday.
Next
Well, so
Monday.
next
Okay.
Monday being is it the 22nd?
Yeah, no, it's the 21st.
21st,
Okay.
yeah.
So the goal is we're going to meet on the 21st.
Yes, I'd like that, as long as everybody agrees. That was the last item I had on this agenda for today. It's
Yeah,
the
we can circle back
21st
to it.
at
That's fine.
6. And we'll use the same WEBEX. Yes,
I
May
can
I
do that.
ask, why are we meeting on the 21st? Why not on the 30th?
Because the select board
meets on
meets on the 28th.
the 80th,
Oh,
on the 28th.
okay, got it.
Yeah, so we can review before that meeting.
Got it.
Okay, so the reason I picked the 21st is that by next Tuesday is when we need to notify Lynn Mills
Mm-hmm.
and the select board that we're meeting with them on the 28th.
Yep. Makes sense now. Thank you.
Okay, my timing is everything that's in my head to get it all done. Okay. So we were looking at the content of what we're saying needs to be done over the next 2 to 3 years. That's on page 7, Nick. And so we talked about legal documents. Where we are is still the core values, and this committee adopted the philosophy we have adopted, but the select board has not. We've looked at the core value exercise. We have the totals, but we've not discussed it past the 19th of September. The mission statement has already passed. And we've already, through third quarter, talked to the board organizations, and they are looking at and trying to engage with us so that they are working with us collectively as a board for what they're trying to do with their mission statement, their philosophy, how they're going to proceed, because we would follow this same direction that we provided here in the process. And that is a philosophy, core values, mission goals. That whole line is what we go through in order to achieve DEI results. Does that make sense? What else, Nick, did you want to talk about that's on page 7?
Well, at first I was just speaking holistically. So where we can put actionable next steps next to things, I think that we should. So like if we look at education for managers, or we look at the census data, like if there's anything that there are next step outcomes or actions that we would like to call out, as opposed to just stating them as what they are. I'm in favor of doing that. And I also just wanted to ask, we talked about it for a little while, and I don't know if folks still want to pursue it, but we talked about diversity scorecard, and that's not here as well. So I'm just trying to call out things that we've touched on, and just I want to make sure that this report just isn't, not to say that what we've done is a just. I want to be careful like how I'm phrasing this, but I don't want it to just be a year in review. I'd like it to have actionable next steps, right? That's all. And I mean, like we do. I guess I'm just looking for more clarity around them.
Well, I agree with you. And the next steps are there. As an example, Nancy, Carl, and I need to work with Joanne to look at what's being measured by the school committee, because some of the data looks at results through what they're trying to achieve as well. Nancy and I need to work with Joanne around the statistics. We've already measured the first 3 months what has been collected and it isn't useful. We need to work with Joanne to identify what does she want to evaluate for the town, either for the school department or for the select board. What do we want to measure? I have an example that I did for a university. It may be different for the town, but the person who can help identify that is Joanne, and she reports to Paul. So I've thought about all those processes, and even though this is a short statement about what we're going to do over the next 3 years, next 2 years, it's going to take time to devote to each of those to make it a reality.
Right, I understand that. I guess where I'm coming from is that you're at this particular juncture, you're asking for the select board's continued support on the next 2 to 3 years of this development. And from their perspective, half of these things are not being clarified, outlined, or spelled out. They make sense to us. They make even more sense to you. But I'm looking for a way to get, you know, the authorizing board of this committee to, you know, continue to support the work that we're doing, obviously. And in my professional experience, the best way to do that is to make it very clear what the intentions of the items that we're seeking to do are, and who might even be involved in doing them. So if we want to call out Joanne, we want to call out, you know, whoever, the other boards, you know, where appropriate, where it makes sense, like, you know, this could be built out in a way that just provides more context.
Okay, got it. So you'll have it this week.
As
Sorry,
always, I'm happy to help, you know, put stuff together or provide anything. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to sound like I'm dictating orders here. I'm offering my own support with the suggestions that I put out there.
Thank you.
I'm trying to understand and clarify what you're asking for, Nick. Would it be probably more helpful and clear if like we had a section that was just like future goals or future plan slash timeline, which, you know, BJ has kind of like a rough outline, but maybe something more specific or
Yeah, I mean, you know,
granular?
my brain's like, you know, trying to visualize like a grid, right? Where it's like, okay, this is the Y section. Here are the 4 things that exist in the Y section. Next to each one of those things, here are the people who, you know, are probably like required for, you know, action. And then here's the next best step, right? So assuming that, you know, we're going to review this and the legal definitions before the 28th, right? Then next to that, we could say that, you know, the DEIC has approved that, or, you know, what have you. I assume approved because, you know, we'll make suggestions, comments, changes, and then, you know, pull them through. And then the select board, you know, is up in terms of, or, you know, town council for review, and then select board for a vote, right? Like just like give those next steps on that item.
Okay, so just expand on what there is, but like maybe with like a sub item under each thing for what that means versus
Yeah, just again,
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't think that
details.
anyone else knows like what the 3 theory strategy is, right? When we get into the how. So like, you know, like making sure that there's context there. So, you know, when the other select board members read the report, or anyone for that matter reads the report, because it's public information, you know, there's some understanding and context as to where this committee is trying to move.
I made notes. Thank you. Carl, any thoughts?
I'm in agreement with what Nick is saying. I guess my only concern is it gets too long. But just a general outline I think would be helpful. And I don't want to put all the work onto you, BJ, but you've been doing a wonderful job putting all these reports together, so thank you for doing that. And if you need help, please let us know.
Thank
And
you.
I only to assuage your concerns, Carl, I'm just going to hop in and say that you figure of the existing 25 pages that we're currently looking at, the select board's seen the first 2 quarters already.
Fair. That's
Right.
fair.
And you know, the last meeting we had the final report given by the transportation committee, which started and ends at the same time as this committee. And that was a 46-page slideshow presentation. So, I mean, you know, if this thing hits 30 pages, I don't think that we're in bad company.
All right, that's good to know.
I would also say that even though the select board has had the first quarterly report since February 28th, we've not ever discussed it in content. They do not understand any of the data that's there, and that has to be on our list to accomplish with the select board. I mean, you can't look at what has not been done and then predict where you should go without examining that. And the same thing, we're not going to spend time talking about the third quarterly report, but that's a progress that's being made. And since we spoke last time, which was on the 9th, I believe that I had a call from Ed Werner, and next Tuesday, Nancy and I are going to a health board meeting, and that will be the 3-page presentation to the health board to understand what DE&I is all about. And you've all seen that because it went to the select board. You have a copy of that. On the one that went to the select board, I'm the person that's leading the conversation. But when we meet with other boards, Nancy and I are meeting with them to review this entire process and to put it into play for those boards. So this progress is still being made on a weekly basis, what we're invited to do and how we follow through. We did connect with Barbara and suggest that we do 2 dates in February, 2 dates in January, 2 in February, and 3 in March. And we do not have feedback yet from the planning board, but they want us to work with them. So we want to put this in motion wherever we can and provide support and leadership to the board so that they can engage in the exercises and then put it into play for the board and the people that they serve and work with. Any other thoughts or comments? I know what I have to do over the next couple of days. And so we'll put into play that we're going to meet next Monday, which is great. Are there any other comments that people would like to make? I see you, Nick, not Nick. I see you, Carl, shaking your head. Okay, so our next meeting is the 21st of November at 6. And we'll review both the annual report and the employee legal rights documents. Any other comments? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Carl. Second.
BJ, sorry, BJ, there are folks on the call. Do we not have a, I guess a people's minute or time in today's agenda?
I offered it and no one spoke up.
Oh, I don't know. I missed that. Do we want to offer it right now? Because there are a few folks on the call.
I did offer. If you want to offer it again, now is the time for anyone that wishes to speak. Name and a 2-3 minute comments.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dattu Prajapati. This is my first time attending this meeting. I came across from the Burlington website. How do I get agenda of this meeting?
Ask your
Uh,
question again.
How do I
the
get an agenda? Sorry.
It should be on the website. Did you not? You said you got the to here from the website. There should usually be a PDF of the agenda on the listing for the meeting.
Burlington Meetings is where it's posted, and they also have the agenda.
Yeah, good job, Saeed.
Okay.
So if you go to this website,
Yes.
you can find the agenda or the agendas, I guess, for all committees, subcommittees, etc. And then all you want to do is search for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes,
And
but it is like, you know, like a first quarter report, third quarter report.
no, it's right here. So if I download it,
Oh, okay.
Oh,
here's the agenda.
you're asking to see like the
Oh, the
report.
documents. Yeah, those aren't posted.
But
Yes,
it's right
I wasn't able to follow it much here.
Yeah, so when we present to the select board, then it will be provided in the meeting backup. Is that correct, Nick?
Yep, definitely.
So right now, this is kind of an internal conversation on a document that isn't public. But when we present to the select board on the 30th or
Yes.
the 28th, then that will be available in the documents for the select board meeting.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a general question, like, do you see any ongoing, like, any concerns with the town, the way its diversity is being handled, and are you recommending any improvement in it?
Trying to make sure that I understand your question before I answer it. So,
Mhm.
are you asking if this committee will continue to consult, and then what improvements we're recommending?
Yes, yeah. Do you see any you know any improvements which are required here in the town?
I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but we've definitely identified areas of improvement, and we're working. That's I mean, the whole intent of the committee. This committee was established last fall as a 1-year ad hoc committee.
Yes.
So as of November 30th, the committee will dissolve automatically based on that timeline. But the goal is to reestablish the committee shortly thereafter, to continue on doing some of the work. But that will come down to a full vote of the select board, which this committee is a subcommittee of.
Okay, thank you. And when you will present it to the select board, like, it will be a public meeting which I can attend?
Yep.
Yeah. So next, not next, but
28th.
Monday the 28th is the next select board meeting. And that's an open public meeting, and you're more than welcome to attend.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I'm all set.
And if you're looking for the agenda for that meeting, all you do is you go back to that website that I shared earlier.
Yes.
And just search for the select board, and you'll find that agenda. It should be posted 2 business days prior to the meeting.
Okay, but
Yes,
it will not contain the report itself, right?
It
Report
will
to
actually. So
attend.
Well,
if you search for it on like Friday, the 26th or whatever it is, it'll be posted, and it'll have the backup for the entire meeting. So this report should be in there.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Carl made the motion to adjourn. Second,
Second,
Saeed. Second. All those in favor, say your name and your vote.
Nancy, yes.
Carl, yes.
Sayed Ghani, yes.
Nick Priest, yes.
BJ Addison Reed, yes. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
night, all.
everybody.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Bye,
Bye bye.
everybody.
Good night.